This is the Outlap F1 podcast featuring America's own Cody, Andy, and Deanna. Your one-stop shop for Formula One news, insights, race previews, and reviews. Join us on the Outlap.
We literally just flew back to town, and boy, are our arms tired. Holy moly. We are a little bit more sun-crisped than normal, but other than that, I don't think we're any worse for wear. You've got the Outlap F1 podcast. You've got Andy. I'm along with Cody tonight. This will be Season 7, Episode 37, and we're going to be reacting to the race that we were just at, the USGP weekend, the sprint weekend. Some had some really good weekends. Some others had some weekends that they'd like to forget. We will talk about all that in just a little minute. But Cody, it's been a whole 24 hours since I've seen you. A little more than that after hanging out with me for the last 5 days. But how you hanging otherwise?
I'm doing great. Had a nice easing back into work today after a fantastic little vacation in the heart of Texas, where it was, as we discussed on the preview, really freaking hot. Got a nice tan out of it. We were well protected and well prepared with water. Pretty sure I've recycled all the water in my body like 3 times on that vacation. But yeah, good food, good barbecue, good racing. It was a blast.
Yeah, two compliments. One, Cody, you are the man when it comes to refilling the water bottle. And two, thank you to Coda for actually allowing that to happen. I've been to places where they were like making you buy more water and the fountains didn't work. They understood that like humans needed to be humans and they were only going to gouge you so much. They'd get you on the first bottle, but let you, hydrate as needed throughout the rest of the day. So good on them for that. But we're going to get into all that and then the stuff that actually happened on the racetrack in just a little bit. So if you find our show, as always, welcome along. We are glad you are here. Where can you find us and what we do when we are not talking racing and sometimes being online talking racing? You can find us on X, sometimes on Instagram, Discord a little bit. YouTube is basically our main platform for most of our stuff. At Outlap F1 Podcast is the handle for all of that. You'll get our audio that way. You'll get our videos this way. But if you're also just on your favorite podcasting app, feel free to look us up over there. We are on all of the major ones. 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts or Spotify would be great for us. If you like what you're hearing and you enjoy what you're seeing, a like or a subscribe on YouTube is also a great thing to help us out a little bit. You can email the show as always, outlapf1@gmail.com. We'll get your thoughts to us. Thank you so much to our continued supporters. And if you're a longtime listener to the show, you know this list. Thank you so much to Dean Warwick, Yuri Dolchester, Paul Weaver, Quentin Ward, Kevin Kelly, Regan Stanzik, Timothy Brown, and of course, Jonathan Scott. If you'd like to add your name to that esteemed group of people and get the shout out at the beginning of each episode, we have a link in our show notes. It's our anchor page. You can give us some money if you want to. We'll definitely take it. We'll be thankful, super thankful if you want to. But you don't have to if you don't want to. But if you want to add your name to the list, feel free to check out the link and do us a solid there. What does that do? It all allows us to continue to keep our technology relatively relevant, allows us to do the live broadcast like we did from our hotel room last week, and be able to make this stuff mobile and able to adapt to the ever-changing landscape of tech. All right, we will dawdle no longer. We will get into the hot weekend that was these USGP. We'll start with our headlines of the day. Cody, what you got?
I'm going to go with a quote from The Office here, and it's going to be, "Oh my God, okay, it's happening. Everyone stay calm." Max Verstappen comes out of another race weekend with a big old pile of points that he's gained on McLaren. And really the biggest thing that was unexpected out of it was how many points he gained during the sprint race, which I'm sure you're going to just love talking about. It was very funny, the dichotomy between me and Drew after turn 1 of the sprint. I got this big old smile plastered across my face and Drew is falling apart.
If I could have thrown my hat onto the track and not gotten kicked out, I think I would have done so. I wanted to in the worst way, but I also thought for a minute, they had these signs, do not go on the track and anything. And they had all these fences and everything. And I didn't feel like getting kicked out. I've been a longtime CODA member. I don't feel like forfeiting my right to go to this thing ever again. But boy, that was a painful moment, but we'll talk about that in just a little bit. My headline of the day, why we saw there was actually a Gordon Ramsay garage. I didn't even notice it until I looked back at all our pictures from the track walk, and it was there. And why do I feel like channeling Gordon Ramsay when talking to Oscar Piastri when I just want to say, damn it, get it together? Oscar Piastri did not have a good weekend, and if he wants to win this world championship, he's got to get it together, and it's got to happen now because he's out of markers because Max is there. And so we will definitely get into that in just a little bit, but we will rewind and go all the way back to Friday afternoon. I've also found some new sound to talk about sprint stuff. So I hope you all enjoyed, but we'll start with our sprint qualifying. So it'll be different than our regular qualifying sound. And that saw, all right, having the not classified distinction in sprint qualifying, that was the number 5 of Gabby Bortoleto. P19 was Esteban Ocon. P18, Yuki Tsunoda. Ouch. P17 was Franco Colapinto. And P16, not getting out of SQ1, that was Ollie Behrman. P15 saw Liam Lawson. P14 was Lance Stroll. P13, Pierre Gasly. P12 was Isaac Hadjar, and P11, just missing out on the sprint qualifying shootout, was Kimi Antonelli. The top 10 from 10 to 1. P10 was Charles Leclerc. This was a surprise for Ferrari being so low in this. P9, Alex Albon, Williams showing well early. Lewis Hamilton, again, only good for P8 in the other Ferrari. P7, one of the standouts of the weekend. He just didn't have enough of good results, but he started out the weekend really good. Carlos Sainz. P6, here's your other shocker. Fernando Alonso and the Aston Martin certainly brought the pace early. P5 was George Russell. P4, nobody saw this guy coming. Nico Hülkenberg in the Kick Sauber. P4 and Friday running. P3, Oscar Piastri in the McLaren. P2, Lando Norris in the other McLaren. Just short of the lap time set by the standard bearer this weekend, Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. All right, Cody, big thoughts in the sprint qualifying from Friday.
Yeah, this was the beginning of a very good, very awesome weekend from my perspective as a Max super fan. Going out there and getting pole for the sprint. He did, just beat out at least Lando Norris. Now, Lando Norris put in a really good lap himself and was about 0.3 up on Oscar Piastri, but Max headed up almost another 10th even so on Lando. So I was getting excited. I was thinking, okay, we're looking like we gain a point or two here on the McLarens in the sprint based on this qualifying. Max looks good so far. Obviously, sprint qualifying, you're going into that with only one practice session. So Max seems like he tends to do well in those situations when the car isn't 100% dialed in yet. He seems to still be able to extract a lot out of it. So I was going into this kind of tentatively thinking, okay, he did well here. Let's see how he does in the sprint. Let's see how he does in, qualifying for the actual Grand Prix after everyone has had a little more data, a little more time to dial things in. It was definitely a great start.
Yeah, I mean, the theme of the sprint qualifying was all the major... There, one, you had some surprises, which was, I think, the whole point of this. And then two, the major players in the championship were all going to be there and basically start pretty much together at this point. Max Verstappen and Lando Norris did have a really interesting, if you look at the sectors, duel for pole position, where Max definitely owns the first sector. Lando looked like he owned the second sector a little bit better. And then it came down to the sector 3, and it was just that little bit. 0.071 seconds, if my memory and my math serves me correctly, that Max pips Lando just at the end in SQ3. Decent start at this point for Oscar Piastri. We will talk about what happened to his weekend. But again, the standouts for me, Nico Hülkenberg, where did that come from? Nobody saw that coming. I mean, his teammate wrecks in SQ1 and does not set a lap time just not anywhere. But Nico Hülkenberg doing well. Fernando Alonso doing well on a circuit that you would not expect Aston Martin to be pretty good at, given characteristics of their car. And then the surprising struggles of the Ferraris, who have gone usually so well at this track, certainly not on the pace early. So, yeah, definitely had a mixed up grid heading into Saturday, which saw... All right, so we start off with a lot of retirees and some big names here. Fernando Alonso did not finish. Oscar Piastri did not finish. Lando Norris did not finish. And Stroll also didn't finish, and neither did Esteban Ocon. So you only had 15 classified finishers. Those classified finishers started with Ollie Behrman in the Haas, P14 was Franco Calapinto. P13, unable to make the qualifying form stick. He had a kerfuffle in turn 1. We will definitely talk about turn 1 in just a minute. That was Nico Hulkenberg. P12 was Isaac Hadjar. P11 was Gabby Bortoletto. P10, Pierre Gasly. P9, Liam Lawson. Your sprint points finishers. P8 was Kimi Antonelli. P7, rally cap for Yuki Tsunoda. Where did that come from? P18 to P7 in the sprint. P6 was Alex Albon. P5 was Charles Leclerc. So Ferrari recovering some form here. P4 was Lewis Hamilton, also recovering some form. P3, guy's got 2 podiums in the second half of the season that he never thought he would have. Carlos Sainz in the Williams is quietly putting together a really solid second half. P2, George Russell, but P1, after the first lap, it was pretty much over. That was Max Verstappen in the Red Bull, dominating the pole position, because it actually finished under a safety car. So the gap not telling of just how good he was here. All right, Cody, if you want to talk about Max, I'll talk about the other parts of turn 1.
Yeah, sure. So, well, I'll let you get into the nitty gritty of what happened in turn 1. As far as turn 1 at COTA in general, it's a pretty tight turn for turn 1, big elevation change. It's kind of like the mirror image in a way of the first turn at Spa in how tight it is, but you're going in there a lot faster than you are into turn 1 from the start at Spa. So much bigger brake zone. Max Verstappen managed to get a really good start off the line. It was actually, the best part about going to this is you and I have awesome seats right there at the start, and you could actually see off the line that Max had.
You could see it, you could hear it too. You could hear who didn't screech tires and who did.
Able to cut across Lando, who really didn't have a particularly great start. Oscar had the much better start of the 2 McLarens, but Max able to romp in the lead much further down the road. After the turn 1 mayhem, had to get a little nervous about if he was actually going to be able to bring it home, because lo and behold, George Russell was able to put the pressure on him, stay really close, and actually put up, in my opinion, a bit of a crazy move that was never going to work. He put a dive bomb on Max from really far back and ended up pushing them both off the track. Max was able to avoid that by also going off track, and that was really the biggest point of the pressure. After that, Max was able to pull away a little, and then, as you said, ended up finishing under safety car. But I'll let you go through the big incident before I talk about that incident.
I mean, the flashpoint, the one that you've probably all seen. I watched it, unfortunately, in slow motion because I've had to try to figure out what I thought I could see. Couldn't see the incident really well from where we were sitting. However, I saw it on the monitor, and then, they have other cameras, but we saw the end of it. Let's put it that way.
You also could hear the crowd up the hill being like, oh.
Yes, we heard and knew something was not normal, and then all of a sudden you see a part of a car that you're not necessarily supposed to see from that vantage point. So let's talk about the start of the race from the 2 McLaren perspectives. Lando Norris is in front of Oscar Piastri. I would definitely concur with you, Cody, and I would say that Oscar got the better start in the first phase of the start for sure, because Oscar had pulled almost, if not even alongside, but slightly ahead of Lando going into that turn. And with turn 1, it's a classic multi-apex turn. So there's different ways that you can go in and get out of there. We're trying to get grip and trying to get set up for going down the hill. Lando's line was pretty boring, for lack of a better word, but he did get a better second half of the race up the hill. So he pulled back in front of Lando and was basically going to be settling for getting behind Max, and it looked like he was going to just kind of settle for that and be in P2. Where everything happens starts with P3, P4, P5 in this sequence, and Fernando Alonso, who inserted himself into this too. So you've got Lando kind of on the outside. Oscar is in front of him, or is basically to the side of him, but on the inside. And what happens is Alonso is on the super part of the inside. Hulkenberg is right next to him. And then you've got Oscar on the outside of all 2 of those cars. Now, from what I could see, the thing starts off when Oscar attempts to do a switch around move on Lando and turns into slightly where Hulkenberg was. Hulkenberg's kind of a passenger, hasn't have anywhere to go, really, as I kind of saw it. He hits Oscar's back wheel. Oscar's back wheel goes flying. He does a 360 spin. The car actually gets up off the ground. And as Lando's just about ready to put the gas down, nope, a bit 1 millisecond too late. Oscar comes flying in and takes out Lando's rear end and knocks the tire off. So both McLarens are out. Nico Hulkenberg has all but super fatal. He did manage to finish the sprint, and he managed to get back to the pits, and they did change the front wing, but he had a lot of damage, and that was pretty much it for Fernando Alonso. So Alonso, Piastri, Norris all go out right on the first lap. I cannot tell you the heartbreak of waking up, driving 30 miles, fighting with traffic, getting to your seat to have the entire reason for you wanting to be there be over in 5 seconds. Yeah, you saw my reaction. I couldn't hide it.
Yeah, like I said before, the dichotomy was hilarious because Andy was crushed by this, and I'm
if I could have gone into the seat, I think I would have preferred to have melted. It wasn't going to be hard to melt that day, as it turned out, but if I could have melted into the seat, I think I would have preferred that. Yeah, just the one thing you couldn't have happen was what happened. And, I know everyone wants to lay blame. The stewards saw it as a racing incident. I do agree with that. There's certainly not an extra penalty that comes from it. But the catalyst was Oscar Piastri. You can't really deny that when you see where everybody else was. It's a combination of Piastri and where Alonso is. Because if Alonso's not there, maybe Hulkenberg can take a different line and it doesn't end up as crazy. But that's really tough to say. But it doesn't happen if Piastri doesn't turn down on Hulkenberg as they're coming across the corner.
Yeah, Hulkenberg and Alonso are maybe being a little bold with their moves on the inside, but I think had Piastri not tried the cutback, that there would have been room for Hulkenberg and Alonso to make it through with at least less contact. It was the switchback that I don't think anyone was expecting him to do, and that's really where they collided. So. Definitely unfortunate there. Both McLarens stood to finish very well in the sprint race. And, I think Max was probably going to win it, but it would have only gained 2 points on them.
That to me is the frustrating point. Like, I get trying to make something happen, but right there is, in my view, if you're leading the championship, by this point, it was still 55 points. What are you doing trying to gain 1 point on your teammate that may or may not, on a move that may or may not stick? And clearly it didn't stick. It was surprising to me for a guy that has been up till this point. Like, we've seen now in 2 out of the last 3 weekends, real odd cracks from Oscar Piastri, if I'm being bluntly honest. I could understand maybe not nailing a qualifying lap, but then on the race, having, like I said before, the worst 34 seconds of his career, that ended up in a complete DNF. And now this is pretty much right up there with the next worst 5 seconds of his career, because, the only saving grace that I thought of at the end of the day was, thank God it's only the sprint. Because if this thing had happened in the main GP,
oh my gosh,
we're talking about a whole nother universe. As it is, we're talking about a certain universe that we never thought we would be in. But we're definitely into a whole nother way. As for the rest of the sprint, moving beyond the first lap, the other really notable incident was Lance Stroll tried to move at the end of the sprint that it's laughable. How it was not going to happen. And it was another one of those, like, dude, what are you doing? He ended up getting, I think, a 5-place grid drop, but it was mitigated because he basically would have started from the pit lane almost anyway. So it didn't really do anything. So yeah, that happened. So he becomes the other DNF along with Esteban Ocon. That incident that's who he took out. That incident happened on lap 15, and that caused the sprint to end under safety car because there were 2 distressed vehicles, only a couple laps left in the sprint. And unless they wanted to throw a red flag, which they did not, that meant that the sprint basically was over. So the gaps look a lot closer on the official timing, but Max was clear in front. George tried the move, I think, at the end of the eventual restarted first lap. And after that, Max pretty much drove away. So if George wasn't going to make that move stick, that was his only chance to get ahead, try to get the car into clean air. But Red Bull car and clean air go really fast, apparently, too. And it just drove away from everybody. So Max picks up maximum points. The two McLarens pick up no points. Oy, was my reaction to that. But obviously, we had a good section of Max fans in our area, so they were pretty much happy. The other thing that I didn't know at that point was like, would even the two McLarens come out for qualifying? Because they shut the doors and went to work, and they had 3 hours. It was 3 really, really hot hours, I would tell you that too. So I would shut the garage door if I could to go working on the cars, but it wasn't, they were very touch and go. Like even the preview show for qualifying starts and they're like in front of the garage and they're like, well, this car looks pretty much together and this one looks like it's jacked up on the stands and we don't know. Luckily they made it out. But they were not nearly as fine-tuned after that as they were definitely on the Friday. And we never got a chance to see what the race pace would have been on the sprint because, like I said, it went a whole 500 meters. All right. So we will get into our main qualifying. All right. So there's our traditional music. The main qualifying did not complete a qualifying lap. That was Isaac Hadjar as he crashed out in Q1 when unable to set a lap time. P19 was Alex Albon in the Williams. P18 was Lance Stroll. P17 was Esteban Ocon. P16, slightly better form, but not really good enough to get out of Q1, was Gabby Bortoletto. P15 was Franco Colapinto. P14 was Pierre Gasly. Slightly better uptick for the Alpines there. P13, Yuki Tsunoda. P12 was Liam Lawson. P11, just missing out on Q3 as it turns out, was Nico Hulkenberg. P10 was Fernando Alonso. P9, Carlos Sainz in the Williams. P8, Ollie Behrman in the Haas. Very good showing there. P7 was Kimi Antonelli. P6, this was the beginning. The downfall from the sprint happens here. Oscar Piastri only good enough for P6 in main qualifying. P5, rallying from their form on Friday, Ferrari and Lewis Hamilton. P4, George Russell in the Mercedes. P3, the other big rally from the form on Friday, Charles Leclerc and the other Ferrari. P2, Lando Norris, unable to really, and nobody was really able to really challenge Max Verstappen. He only needed one lap to set the pole, and he did so in a 132.510. Right. Yeah, Cody, we thought Max might be in trouble when he only gets one of his final laps, but did not matter. He was so damn good in that first one. That was a hell of a lap he set down.
Yeah, that had me bent out of shape for a minute at the track because he goes out there in Q3 and puts a scorcher of a lap down, 0.3 up on anyone else. It's a huge gap, and I'm sitting here thinking like, oh hell yeah, if this is what he's got now, we'll see what he's got at the end.
You were talking track record.
Yep. He's sitting in the garage. And I'm watching the clock and he's sitting in the garage and I lean over to you and I'm like, they better get him out of there pretty soon or else he's not going to have enough time to get around the track. And as he's going around, he's got to let people who are on their hot laps find stuff. I'm looking at the clock. I'm like, holy shit, man, he's not going to make it around. Lo and behold, he did not. And I was like, oh my God, that is a major screw up. And it ended up, fortunately for him, not mattering. His first lap was just good that he still ended up 0.3 up on everybody else at the end, which was great for him. But yeah, that stood to be a big screw up if everyone ended up going faster than him, because as we've seen with track evolution in the past, you could have fastest lap on the first go and slide down the order on the next time, as you're trying to get your next lap in. So yeah, had his first lap not been so good, he could have been starting, third row perhaps. Would not have been good, but fortunately he's just that good.
Well, that and the way that the qualifying worked, and I don't know if I would call this an anomaly. I mean, we've seen teams do the try to get, to the end of the pit lane and to hurry up and wait. It seemed magnified here more than I've ever seen it before. And that might have been because it was so hot, and that might have been because we were on a C4 tire that everybody really was trying to manage and, do the temperature game. Because we saw a lot of, like, when qualifying would get interrupted, it was almost hilarity. They would post the 10 10 cars sitting there with literally fingers on buttons, waiting for the start time to post. And the thing would do on my timing, I was watching it on my iPad, would come up like there was one session, restart at 16:14, and all of a sudden you just hear screech from 10 cars racing to get to the end of the pit lane. And then they would come out, would they come out like all gangbusters? Oh, hell no. They would come out and they would go and climb up the hill like a grandmother driving a race car. And no offense to grandmothers out there, but I imagine it's going to be slower than what you would expect an F1 driver to be. And it was one of the strangest things ever. So everybody who came out basically did this. It didn't matter when you made it to the end of the pit lane, but you were all going to do this slow tire prep lap. And that's really what caught, I think, Max out, was there was just not enough time to do all of those procedures and get around and end up starting at the end of it. So he misses out, but it did not matter. Like, here was the thing. It didn't matter. You said 0.3 in the first lap. No, sir. It was 4 for my timing. He was 0.4 up on anybody. And it became a really, really scrappy qualifying for the McLarens. I am actually very impressed with the lap that Lando got. The fact that he even got within 0.2 and got to P2, given all of the stuff that happened after the sprint and getting the cars ready. And they were almost knocked out in Q1 that Lando had to put in the time just to make it out. It almost happened again in Q2 where they needed their final laps to get in, and they got there. But it was just a completely scruffy session. So Lando comes in and gets P2, only 6/1000ths of a second in front of who I thought was one of the stars of that qualifying session, was Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton in the Ferraris, finding form where they didn't have it before. And oh yeah, there's George Russell just saying, "Hi, I'm George Russell, and I'm just going to be on your second row today," type of lap. So yeah, the big hitters taking each other out, but and Max Verstappen just shining above in the qualifying session for sure.
Yeah, it can't understate, or can't overstate. I don't know. Just how much Ferrari improved from Friday to Saturday, because we didn't really go into just how bad the struggles were. And for the sprint qualifying, you had Charles Leclerc in 10th, and Lewis Hamilton in 8th. We were thinking they were going to be rotten this weekend. Ended up getting a little help in the sprint race due to all the retirements. But then going into the main qualifying, you've got Charles Leclerc qualifying. Oh, I got my stuff mixed up there. Qualifying 3rd, pretty much competing with Norris for 2nd. And in fact, there was sometimes where he was at the top of the timing sheet, and then Lewis Hamilton up to 5th. So major gains for them. And then, yes, Oscar Piastri in particular going in the opposite direction. I don't know if the process of rebuilding the car just led to something feeling different for him. But he was definitely not as comfortable with the car on Saturday, because he only managed to qualify 6th, which had me, again, all happy. I mean, I don't want to really wish misfortune on Oscar, because he seems like a nice guy. He's extremely talented, but I want Max to win, and this just helps everything.
Well, it also brings Lando back into play too. I mean, this is, both of them benefit from Oscar a bit on the back foot. And to me, just looking through the practice and the sprint qualifying and then this qualifying, one, it was slightly warmer. We know that these cars can be uber temperature sensitive. We've seen that before. That could have played a role. But I just think it's a matter of driver confidence. Lando even said it, I think, in one of his interviews, even after the Friday, where he said, "I think I'm a little better at I'm more comfortable being uncomfortable than Oscar is." Because when the McLaren car is right, they're both uber fast, and Oscar can be there, and if anything, maybe he's faster. When that car isn't as good, like was the case here, Lando was clearly able to at least wring something out of it that Oscar couldn't at that point. But then again, it didn't seem to matter for either of them, because there was Max 0.3 in front of them both, which is another thing on only one lap. Oh, by the way. But other standouts of qualifying, I thought Ollie Behrman and the Haas showing well for their home race. They were the one team that brought big sets of upgrades. So that was good to see for their prospects for the rest of the season, because they're in a big fight in the constructors to try to move up maybe 2 or 3 positions from where they're at. And then good form, I think, again, from the Williamses, for a car that's not being developed. Carlos Sainz is doing more and more good things. This guy has clearly gotten to terms with that car, figured it out, and was having himself a really good weekend, at least up until this point. But we'll talk about what misfortune befell him on Sunday. But any other big thoughts in the qualifying before we move on?
Just that, let's see here. I don't know if this was specific to qualifying, but you're talking about Carlos Sainz. He's got a big fan base here in the States because
that's true.
When he got that sprint podium, man, he was getting some serious cheers, probably louder than anybody else on the podium. So yeah, he is definitely a fan favorite here.
It was interesting, especially when you even get to the race podium. There are lots of cadres of fans that were at Circuit of the Americas that you could definitely hear. Carlos Sainz, a big cheer, very popular here. Franco Colapinto is another one that, like, even you could hear it on the TV broadcast. The Colapinto fans not only invaded the track, but invaded the podium and didn't care where he finished. So that was one that was noticeable. Obviously, Lewis Hamilton has a big following here. Obviously, Lando Norris has a big following here, and there's lots of Max Verstappen fans. So it's great that it's not just one driver bringing the crowd. Like, you talk about F1 in the US, it's diverse, and there's a lot of different sectors of fans for each. We saw tons of Red Bull stuff. I've seen a lot more papaya stuff than I ever before in my 12 years being here. So that was good to see. Even if the result wasn't all that great for some of them. But anyway, it was just one of those things that you could tell there's a lot of good U.S. fan base loyalty at this track for sure. All right. Well, we will shift gears and we'll move into Sunday, which we'll drop our green flag here. And we'll start with our back markers because I think that's probably the appropriate place to do so. So he was having a great weekend, and then he wasn't. Carlos Sainz in the Williams unfortunately gets the dreaded DNF and a 5-place grid drop for the next race as his incident. I forget who he hit, but he made contact and was basically given the blame by the stewards, and he gets the dreaded DNF. And like I said, he's going to have for Mexico next weekend a 5-place grid drop. P19 was Pierre Gasly. P18 was Gabby Bortoleto. P17 got a lot of fan support, but didn't really matter. Actually, the Alpine on Alpine crime was something we should probably talk about. That was Franco Colapinto. P16 was Isaac Hadjar. P15 was Esteban Ocon. P14 was Alex Albon. So the Williams form faded a bit, especially after the longer the weekend went. And P13 had a great sprint and a great sprint quali, but not a good race day. That was Kimi Antonelli in the Mercedes. Let's talk about the Alpine on Alpine crime, because apparently there's been statements about it. There were team orders issued. We talk about the McLarens and the team orders all the time. The Alpines tried it, and Franco Colapinto said, "No, I'm not having any of it." And they were having a scrap going up to turn 1 that I think you and I and only the people there really saw it. I don't know how much TV caught of it, but I
was hearing actually that the TV coverage, ironically, the one time that we weren't watching it, was actually really, really good.
Of course it was.
That they caught pretty much like all the overtakes. So they actually did. They did have that one on the broadcast, and it was pretty wild to hear team orders to hold position when they're running 17th, 18th at the time or whatever. It's not for points. I mean, maybe you don't want to risk wrecking the cars, and having to spend the money and time and effort to put it back together again. But like, Franco Colapinto is fighting for his career, quite literally, at this point. We don't know if he's going to be back next season. He's had a bit of a rough go this year after showing very well at the end of last year. And I don't think he was going to take any of that. He had the fresher tires. He had the better pace. Pierre Gasly probably should have just let it by, honestly. But I thought it was fun that they actually fought for it. And I thought it was fun that Franco Colapinto decided, no, I'm going to actually go for this. Points be damned, team orders be damned. And I think the fans loved it.
Yeah, I mean, it was a hell of a ding dong, actually, to actually watch it live. All of a sudden, you just look up and you go, they're going at each other. And like, wait a minute, those those are teammates, right? Like, you almost like
Mhm.
have to second guess yourself and go, yeah, you're seeing what you think you're seeing. But yeah, there was some fallout, I think, on social media. I think their team president, or forget who, one of the big wigs over there, said there will be not repercussions. They didn't use the same word as the McLarens did. There was going to be something that we were going to handle it, I think was what they said. I don't know what that necessarily has turned into, but I'm sure there's been meetings and the appropriate slaps on the wrists have been had at this point. But we'll see if anything else comes out of it. I mean, they're probably not going to re-sign Franco Calapinto anyway, which you can have your own opinion on whether or not that's a good idea or not. But yeah, so he's pretty much just doing whatever he's going to try to do to try to get into the headline and be noticed, because I think that's what he needs to do to rectify his career. All right. So, any other thoughts in the back markers? Because I really didn't have anything else.
Just that it was a rough one for the Williams. I'm pretty sure both, Carlos Sainz retired from the race. He it seemed like he was going to continue his good form from the sprint race. It was making some good moves early on, and then ended up making one move too many down the inside.
Was it Ocon that he hit?
I don't think it was Ocon. It might have been Antonelli.
Oh, maybe.
I actually don't remember.
Yeah. All right.
But yeah, goes for a move on the inside of whomever, ends up colliding with them, spin them around. And
oh yeah, no, I think you're right. I think it was Antonelli, because that was the shot of Antonelli with all the rocks stuck to his tires.
Yeah, and it's really funny that shot and the sound of pretty much a high schooler, in my opinion, going, "What up, bleeping idiot." Always cracks me up. Yeah, Alex Albon, I think, had a spin as well early on and ended up way behind everyone, and tried to recover as best he could. But yeah, a bit of a rough one for the Williams.
All right. Yeah, and that was the only actual interruption. We did not get a full safety car. We had a virtual safety car for that, as they had to clear Carlos Sainz's stricken Williams off of the track. All right. So moving into the midfield, P12, probably biggest mover of the day, believe it or not, or one of the bigger movers of the day, Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin, starting from the back and all the way to P12. So that's something. P11 was Liam Lawson. And then your points finishers started with P10, Fernando Alonso. P9 was Ali Behrman in the Haas. P8 was Nico Hulkenberg. Good rally after the great qualifying form on Friday and not so great qualifying form on Saturday. P7, Yuki Tsunoda. Hey, look at that. The other Red Bull can score points now. Look at this concept. But getting up to P7 was him. P6 was George Russell. P5, only able to recover one position after the poor qualifying on Saturday. That was Oscar Piastri, who got close to, but did not have enough in the end to chase the almost stricken Ferrari of Lewis Hamilton. But Lewis did manage to get it across the line in fourth place. Cody, big thoughts here in the midfield.
Big one for me here is Yuki Tsunoda and Oliver Behrman having a bit of an incident between the two of them that, to me, looked like pretty poor driving on both of their parts, actually, because Oliver Behrman sends it to the inside of Yuki Tsunoda in a move where it looked like there was really never going to be enough room for him to go to the inside anyway. And it's kind of hard to tell exactly what Yuki was doing. Was he going to go for that apex anyway and then pulls out of it because he thought he was going to get rammed by Behrman? Or did he do a late move to try to block Behrman? It's really kind of hard to tell, but it looks kind of clumsy when it's happening, and Behrman ends up taking a spin out of it. Fortunately, he's still able to finish ninth, get a couple points for Haas. So overall, actually, a pretty good Sunday race for the two of them. But yeah, that moment on screen had me going like, I don't know, kind of both in the wrong there.
Yeah, it's kind of like the two wrongs don't make a right, and never was going to be right type of situation there. Moving forward a little bit, George Russell seemed to be on the heels of Oscar Piastri, even though Piastri did get past him on the first lap. But it never really amounted to much of a charge from Russell. There was a couple radio transmissions I know that we got played even in the grandstands where we were saying, we think Piastri's slow. It looks like he's struggling on his tire. Maybe he was, but he managed to at least gut out a P5 in a weekend that just went more haywire for him than he would have liked. So some damage limitation. Obviously, the sprint is what they're going to look at this weekend and go, what the hell happened there? But so some semblance of it. It is a top 5. But I thought Ferrari finding the form, not only in qualifying pace, we knew that the Ferrari could be fast over one lap. We also know that Ferraris have struggled with plank wear and all that stuff. And this being a sprint weekend, we were almost kind of taking bets on the plane ride coming down, saying, what's the over-under on when the Ferraris are getting told to lift and coast? And that just did not happen. So whatever they found, or whether it's something that's specific to this track, they've always gone well here, Ferrari have, since they built this place. So yeah, the return to form for both Hamilton and now for the podium. We'll talk about that. We'll move into that. P3 was Charles Leclerc. P2 was Lando Norris, and the Norris-Leclerc ding-dong that went throughout the whole race was a thing because it took Lando quite a bit to get eventually past Charles Leclerc a second time, or a third time if you count the start of the race, really. And that just enabled one Max Verstappen to have probably the easiest Sunday drive he's had in a long time. I don't know. The only time I think it ever got close was 6.8 seconds after the pit stop. But other than that, he was gone.
Yeah, it was a little hard to tell exactly how the pace stacked up between Max and Lando because Charles Leclerc gets by Lando Norris right at the start of the race.
Starting on soft tires, which was the big part.
That was the big thing, is Charles Leclerc was pretty much the only one of the front runners to try starting the race on the soft, and he made it work for him at the beginning because he got the move down on Lando. He made the tires last for longer than I was expecting, probably longer than anyone was expecting. And even as they started to fade, it was being a real headache for Lando, who was, lap after lap after lap, getting really close, trying to make a move. And then Charles is just able to hold him off that little bit. When he finally does get by, Charles ends up pitting off those tires. But then that gave everyone else the idea, our mediums are looking real good. The softs lasted a long time. Maybe let's just try extending our medium sprints and see if we can finish the race on softs. That's pretty much what all the front runners did who started on the mediums. They extended their stints and made the hard tires last like 30 laps when they were
there were no hard tires. These were softs. This was the amazing part.
Yeah. So they make their mediums last forever. They go to the softs. Now, it did look like not everyone was having as much luck with the softs at the end of the race, not able to make them work very long. And to be fair, Charles did have them fade, probably, quickly enough that Lando still had the pace advantage when he was fighting him. But Lando gets by him once through the pit stop sequence. Charles gets in front again, and then Lando Norris has to get that pass done again. But I would say the second time he did it in style. He actually made a pretty good daring move up the inside.
He finally listened to me.
Charles.
The whole first time, you could tell, I give full credit here to Charles Leclerc. He understands where the overtaking parts are at Circuit of the Americas. And he did the thing that I've been screaming for Lando to do was, dude, get to the inside at these apexes. And it didn't matter that Charles got a whole bunch of gunk on his tires and kicked up clouds of Texas dust that had been blowing around all day at Circuit of the Americas in the opposite direction, mind you, from the other sessions. Just helpful for us because it was about 10 degrees cooler. So we were super thrilled with that. But Leclerc was making those moves stick and keeping it on the track, and Lando just wasn't. He got his third track limit strike by lap 15, and I'm like, there's 35 laps to go, and he gets one more, he gets a 5-second penalty, and that's almost a death knell, depending on where you stack up. But he finally, on lap 51 of 56, after the pit stop sequence, he gets right onto Charles. Tires got too hot, he had to back off. And then he backs off to 2, 3, 4 seconds. And then you're thinking, well, that's it. He comes on the radio, goes, tires are done. His engineer had to come on the radio. We actually heard this one that said that, get through the first phase. The tires will come back once you can cool them off. He did that, managed to refine some pace, get that move done on lap 51 by getting to the inside and finally making it stick. The move that he never did on Max last year, the move that he didn't want to do even the first time they toiled for this position, but he finally gets it done. and got it done by keeping it on the track. So by then it was 8-9 seconds to Max, and Max was just coming up on some back markers. So Max wins by 7.9 seconds. That's probably flattering, if I'm being honest, just about where they were in the traffic battle, because Lando never got there to that big group that was the Alpines were doing stuff in front of Max and, not paying attention to where anybody was. And, so we saw a lot of blue flags flash in front of us really by the end of the race. But yeah, I don't think even if, because of the wreck on Saturday, I don't think the McLaren pace was ever going to be there. That car, which they had come into this weekend saying, we don't think we're going to be great at COTA, probably needed to be as fine-tuned down to the millimeter as it could be, and it just couldn't happen because of what happened on Saturday morning or Saturday early afternoon. All right. Really nothing really to talk about Max's race. I mean, he had a great move on the inside and then goodbye.
Yeah, it was. That's what I was saying before with you couldn't really tell the relative pace between the two of them, because since Norris got held up so much by Charles, as Charles lost his tires, Max was just able to pull out, and it really became just a big tire management race for him. Made the mediums extend as long as he could. I think he pretty much was one of the last guys to pit. Waited for Lando to say, I can't take it anymore. This ends up leading to Max leading every lap of the race. So at this point, he is pretty much the fastest lap of the race away from like a super grand slam, because he got the pole for the sprint.
Close as you could get. Yeah.
Yep. Pole for the main race, won the main race, led every lap of both races. Unfortunately for him, Kimi Antonelli comes out of it with the fastest lap at the end, but I don't think that takes much away from his very good weekend.
No. I mean, I don't think you could have drawn it up any better other than the turn one thing happening in the race itself. That pretty much was about it. And like I said before, I thought the fact that Lando was as good as he was in a car that really wasn't as fine-tuned as it really should have been, was, I think, a testament to the extra experience that he has in that car. And like I said, being comfortable, being less comfortable in the car and still able to try to make it work. Whether that becomes a flashpoint or a turning point in the drivers, we're still too many rounds out to know. But if you're Oscar Piastri, you got to be looking at yourself in the mirror and go, dude, we got to find something. Whatever this is in the second half, they ain't it. The Zandvoort win. It's been nowhere. And he's just bleeding points out to both of his rivals now. Max especially. And the once comfortable, easy, just need to finish P2, P3. We were doing the math. Sometimes we had a lot of time between going to and from the track to kind of talk about this. So we were doing the math about, he just needs to finish P3. Oh, no, he doesn't. He needs to finish P2 once. Oscar's got to win a damn race. Oscar's got to find somewhere now to win a damn race between now and the end of the year. And I come back to it and I say, okay, this was a really not a good weekend for him. But if I'm an Oscar Piastri fan, here's where I take solace. And then if you said, take everything away that has happened this season, that if you said you were still 40 points up with 5 races to go, would you take that bet? Every Oscar Piastri fan should still say yes to that. And that's where we are.
Problem is, he's not 40 points up. He's 14 points up.
Well, he's 14 points up on Lando, but he's 40 points up on Max.
Yes.
I would still take the bet if you were 14 points up with 5 races to go, because you're still leading it.
Well, yeah, I would definitely would take being 14 points up over 14 points down, but it's closing quickly, and Lando has been in much better form over the last several races.
Yes. So, yeah, Oscar Piastri's got to find it. And that's why my headline was Gordon Ramsay going, dude, get it together. Come back to me, damn it. As he's throwing the risotto at the wall, as he is apt to do, because that's kind of almost what, at certain points, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to take something and throw it against something to make the pain stop. But anyway, that's our USGP in a nutshell. Good things that I thought from the experience, and you know it a little bit better because you haven't been every year. Sometimes I think I get biased by it being there every year. I thought the organization of the parking lot, which we thought was going to be a major problem, turned out to be a lot better.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God. Friday,
the hell out of us.
Yeah. Friday we're going to the track. We're getting out of the track, and we're like, man, if this is how crappy it's going to be today, we rue what's going to happen the rest of the weekend. And then Saturday and Sunday, he got out of the lot no problem.
Right.
It was way quicker than any time I've been there before.
Yeah.
Also, I feel like because of where we're at in the stands, right at the start-finish line, we're literally at the end of the grandstands. Maybe we've talked about this before, but we do have a little bit of an issue with people coming and hanging out on the stairs, and it normally it's not a big issue. People come, they take their pictures, and they leave. But right when you get to the race start in a couple years, it's gotten super crowded there, and it can be frustrating because we pay good money for those seats, and I really want that really good view of the start of the race. And there's all these people who are coming from wherever else in the grandstands, and
you don't know where they're coming from. That's part of the problem, right?
But no, the people working our area, the stands, they did a fantastic job of mediating that well.
Yeah.
As well. They weren't like just saying straight up, no, you can't come in here. There was more like, okay, come down, get your pictures, and then please clear out. And then with like pretty much like as they were getting ready to do the parade lap, then it was like, okay, it's time for you all to go sit in your seats. And I thought that they handled it very well.
Yeah. So I thought
very impressed.
The gentleman who was working our section was an absolute gentleman and figured out how to do it the right way. So, come in, get your picture. It's fine. And then, you're not supposed to be sitting here, then leave. As long as you were reasonable about it, he was reasonable to you. And that's, to me as a fan, in the experience, look, I understand, like, even if you paid a grandstand seat, you want to get that view for a second. I don't have a problem sharing it for 5 seconds. No big deal. But don't then try to like sit in the section and act like you've been here when by the third day, who's sitting next to you and around you and all that type of stuff. So, but again, kudos to the track. I thought this was overall one of the best organized U.S. Grand Prix that I've been to in terms of the food vendors didn't run out of food or nothing. Everybody had plenty of stuff. They didn't run out of water. They didn't run out of Powerade. Yeah, it's expensive as hell, but that going into it. So I thought, kudos to the track overall for just a well-run fan experience, which because some years we've had where it's been kind of all hell breaks loose. Like the year of the rainstorm, all freaking hell broke loose, literally. And nobody knew what to do with anything. So to go from that to this, in just a few years, good on you, Circuit of the Americas. And I didn't read a whole lot of negative fan stuff this year about the venue or anything like that. So I think everybody who came had a great time. Some had a better sporting day than others, and that's totally cool. But hey, and like I told you too, I said, this is actually Lando's best finish at Circuit of the Americas on the road. His best prior to this was 2023, where he led for 20 some laps, but then the tires faded and so did his form. Finished actually P3 on the road, but Lewis Hamilton and Leclerc ended up getting disqualified. So this matches that, at least in terms of points. And we go on to Mexico. If you're Oscar Piastri, the good news is you don't have to dwell on this. You can turn around and throw it in the bin and reset and re-rack and come back stronger for Mexico, because he's got to do it now. It may not going to happen. But anyway, so endeth the USGP. So we are going to take a quick break. We will re-rack. We will come back. We will tell you what this weekend did to all of the driver standings. Is definitely getting tighter at the top. We will then recap where all the constructors are. It's getting tighter for P2 in the constructors for sure, and getting tight for P6 in the constructors for sure too. We'll talk about that. We'll then open it up to your reaction. We've got our regulars back. One of our regulars who's been away for a while is also back. We're glad he's here. So we'll get into all that in a little bit. We'll hand out some awards. We'll talk about predictions. And then we'll close out an epic USGP weekend from our perspective. So come on back. You won't want to miss it.
You are listening to the Outlap F1 podcast, and we'll be right back after this quick pit stop. Grab your flu powder, broomstick, or apparate to your favorite audio streaming service to join the discussion on Hogwarts, a podcast, where Dan and his friends have in-depth chapter-by-chapter breakdowns of each Harry Potter novel. Join the group as they dive into the magical world and discuss plot points, analyze character development, and occasionally go off the rails. Whether you're a muggle who's new to the series or a pure-blood wizard who won't need a remember-all, Hogwarts, a podcast, brings everyone to the Great Hall for a magical discussion. Hogwarts, a podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, welcome back on in. This is Season 7, Episode number 37, Outlap F1 Podcast. It's our 2025 USGP review show. You've got Andy and I'm along with Cody tonight, and we just wrapped up talking about very hot, very maybe championship significant USGP that saw Max Verstappen do basically everything that he needed to do if he wants to get back into this drivers' championship fight. He has done it. So what did that do to the point standings? It all got closer. So Cody, detail it for us. What do we got in the drivers' top 10?
All right. Oscar Piastri still leads the drivers' championship for McLaren, and he's up to 346 points. However, his lead is shrinking pretty rapidly. Lando Norris still sits in second place in the other McLaren at 332 points, only a 14-point gap there. Max Verstappen making the big gains this weekend for Red Bull Racing. He's still in third. He's at 306 points, which only puts him 40 points now out of Oscar Piastri's lead. George Russell sitting in fourth place for Mercedes at 252 points. Charles Leclerc officially not in the hunt for the championship anymore. He's fifth place for Ferrari at 192 points. Lewis Hamilton in sixth place in the other Ferrari at 142 points. So 50 points between him and Charles. Kimi Antonelli, a little bit of a rough weekend for him. He's sitting in seventh place for Mercedes at 89 points. Alex Albon, also a rough weekend for him, still in eighth place at 73 points. I'm pretty sure Nico and Isaac have been in these positions since the last time we checked, or last race. Nico Hulkenberg, ninth place, amazingly. For Kick Sauber at 41 points and only 2 points behind him on 39. Isaac Hadjar in the Racing Bulls.
And still a ton of like four other drivers within, I think, 5 points of P10.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a position that if you are a watcher of where our chart drops off is going to be one for sure. That's going to be very interesting coming all the way to Abu Dhabi. As for the constructors, we know who's won it. That is McLaren. They will not be caught this season. They are up to 678 points. But after that, there's a ton left to be decided. P2 Mercedes, they check in with 341 points, a 7-point lead on P3 Ferrari, who are up to 334. But only now a 3-point lead in front of Red Bull on the strength of now both Max and Yuki Tsunoda were scoring points this weekend. What a concept. Look what happens. Red Bull could still finish P2 in this constructor fight despite changing their team principal, firing a lot of people, and changing all sorts of stuff on the car. But they could still definitely end up P2. It is still in the cards for them for sure. 5 is more than likely going to be Williams. I doubt that they are going to be caught. While it is still mathematically possible and anything can happen, more than likely Williams is going to finish 5th in the constructors this season. But P6 and all the way through, lots still to be determined. P6 is Racing Bulls right now. They are on 72 points, only 3 points ahead of Aston Martin, who have found a lot of good form in the second half of the season, if I'm being honest. So they are up to 69 points. P8 is Kick Sauber on the strength of Nico Hulkenberg and some timely points by Gabby Bortoletto, up to 59 points. P9 is Haas on the outside looking in this fight, but not mathematically out of anything at this point. They check in with 48 points. P10, more than likely going to finish P10 unless something major were to happen. But,
like Brazil.
They could do a double podium in Brazil again. That is Alpine, but they are still the best, worst team ever on 20 points. All right. Well, you have heard our take on live from the grandstand on the USGP weekend. It is now time to open it up to your thoughts on the weekend in the fan email segment. We've got our regulars here. Cody, as it is always your time to shine, sir. What you got?
Our first fan email comes in from Rachel Fleming. Thank you, Rachel. And she says, well, I'm sure Cody loved that result. You're goddamn right I did. I hope the weekend was pretty fun. It certainly was. It really did feel like 2023 all over again with all my favorite football teams all losing again as well. I don't blame Charles for this, because it was an extremely good strategy, but him overtaking Lando at the start, but not overtaking Max, is pretty disastrous for the race. I'm not saying Lando would have got near Max, but it might have been closer. Saying that, though, Lando was pretty much on pace all weekend and completely overshadowed Oscar. Oscar seemed nowhere, and that could be worrying for him. Oscar needs to discover his form quickly. I would like to know who you guys think was mainly responsible for the first lap sprint crash. I personally think it was just one of those things. It was a bit of a shame, though. Alonso Watch sprint was out on the first lap, and then in the race, he did get a point, so a little better on Sunday at least. Sauber Watch, Gabriel Bortoleto had a pretty poor weekend all around. But for the Hulk, it started well, and then it all went wrong in the sprint, but he finally got points in the race, the first points since his podium. Now, that is a bit of a wild stat there because it took so long for Nico Hulkenberg to finally get that podium. And then he pretty much dropped off the radar there up until this race.
Weekend.
It's been quite a few races since he's got points, but I'm happy for him that he finally did get them here in Austin. Yeah, lots of good points here. For the first lap incident, I agree that it was pretty much just a racing incident. You got so many guys trying to squeeze into that turn where you have to turn like that. It's caused many issues in the past. And I think a little bit of blame goes on everyone. Like we said before, Alonso and Hulkenberg were maybe a little too bold with their lines on the inside. Oscar Piastri trying to do a cutback on the very first lap was the choice. So is sitting on a little bit of everybody there.
Yeah, I think, like I said, if it is like 51-49 on everybody else, it's 51-49 Oscar plus, and then 49% to everybody else, because it's all of it. It's not just one thing. It's not like Oscar went for a dive bomb and a move that never could have happened. It could have happened, but there were 3 other cars there that kind of prevented it from happening. Yeah, it's really tough. Should there, you go on again on social media, and of course, all the McLaren fandom is melting, and you just got to, sit down and go, hey, just kick. It's over. It's done with. It happened. There wasn't any malice towards anybody at that point. It's one of those things that just sadly happened. Did they hurt themselves by it happening? Of course they did. It screwed the rest of their weekend. Any chance that Oscar had to get a result out of this weekend went out the door. And kudos to all the McLaren mechanics for getting those cars ready to go in 3 hours, which is not an easy feat, especially as hot as it was that day.
You had to do 2 cars in that time.
Yeah, it wasn't just like they were repairing one. They were repairing both of them and got them both out for qualifying with, I think they were delayed by, a minute or 2? And actually, if anything, the Hadjar crash maybe helped them because there was a red flag, so maybe they got some extra minutes to do some fine tuning. But yeah, I mean, however it worked, they got it done and they got him out there. But the car was not the same. I mean, you could clearly tell for sure on the Oscar side, even on the Lando side too. It just wasn't as good enough to compete with Max this weekend. But yeah, I mean, it's a thing that happens. But other points for Charles Leclerc. No, I mean, Charles Leclerc was the thorn in the McLaren side, but he had the right to do that. I mean, as soon as now we are where we're sitting, we can see that the tire covers come off and we can see the compounds maybe before even the timing has it. And you pointed it out to me. And I looked right at it and said, oh, that's soft tires. That's not like the other ones. And I'm not surprised that he had a better start. He had a better grip on the outside. So good on you, Charles, for that.
Yep, Charles had a great start. Now, something you mentioned here, Rachel, about Lando being on pace all weekend. Yes, he did have very good pace in all the sessions that lasted more than 1 turn. That said, race pace is only part of it. Now, you said Oscar seemed nowhere, and when it came to the main event, like the main race qualifying, the Grand Prix itself, yeah, he wasn't really quite there. But he did start off quite well. He qualified, I think, 3rd for the sprint. And then could have been on track to finish 2nd or 3rd for that, just had things not gotten so hairy. And we don't know how well his car would have done in the following sessions had it not needed to be rebuilt. So there's definitely a lot of caveats to go with how everyone did this week.
I mean, one of I think the telling interviews, and Andrea Stella had a lot of microphones put in front of him, and I give him a lot of credit for answering a lot of the questions as best as he could, was he even kind of said, look, when you have a sprint weekend, you dial the car in one way for the sprint qualifying and the sprint, and then you're just trying to re-optimize what you learn in the sprint. Now, they didn't have that learning. So they just had to go back to the setup that they had and kind of threw it at the car and kind of said, well, we think this is going to work, but we don't really know. And it was different weather, different wind, different racetrack, different evolution than what you had. And you could tell that Lando, as good as he tried to do, just wasn't going to have it for Max. I didn't think so throughout the sessions, and it was just a wonky qualifying for them. But I was proud that he got P2. I was happy with that. That was probably the one time on Saturday where I cracked a smile for a minute, because up till that point, it had been a tough day at the office, to be honest with you. But yeah, they did not do themselves any favors, but it's just one of those things that happens. And you hope that both the Oscar side of the garage for sure, and even the Lando side can reset and come back at it for Mexico, which is a track that may or may not suit them better. We'll see. I think their next big one that they're aiming for, there's two. There's Brazil and there's Qatar. That's where, if we're going to die on a hill, those are the hills they're going to die on. They're either going to win or they're going to do something spectacularly bad in one of those races, because that's where they think they're going to go at it. So we'll see. We still got rounds to go. And Abu Dhabi, they like their chances there too. That's always helpful to like where your car's at the last race of the season.
Yeah. I keep telling myself, they might be better in Brazil and Qatar, but then again, Max also won both those races last year. So I've got that hope going for me right now. But yes, thank you again, Rachel, for your email very much. Our next one comes in from Dave Doherty.
Welcome back, Mr. Dave. It's good to see you, sir.
And Dave says, I'm back. Is this a championship fight for Verstappen? And do you think he could win the championship again? Sorry for my absence the last few weeks. I hope you are well. We hope you're well too, Dave. It's good to hear from you again. In my opinion, it's definitely championship on. We've been kind of easing into it these last few races and podcasts, being like, he got to win, but surely not. Okay, he got 2 in a row and Oscar DNF'd, but surely not. It's still a long shot. Now we're finally to the point where I'm going, hell yeah, there's a real chance. Now it's still going to be tough. I mean, 40 points in 5 races is still quite the gap to clear, especially with how well McLaren has just done over the course of the whole year. But it is definitely in the realm of very possible at this point, in my opinion. So I'm here for it. I'm very excited. We're also, looking at stats, we're in a weird point here. Up until, McLaren had only gone like one race without winning another race. They'd win a whole bunch of races. They'd lose one to Max. They'd win a whole bunch more. They'd lose another one to Max or George. They'd win a whole bunch more. McLaren has not won the last 4 Grand Prix. So, not even all of those were won by Max. You had a wild one from George in there in Singapore. Right. And George won Las Vegas last year. So, it really could be anybody's game at this point for who's going to win the rest of these races. And McLaren is not shown super well. So, Max being on peak form, the car getting better, and McLaren seeming to not have the dominance of the car that they had before, as well as a slump in form from Oscar, makes it extremely possible.
It's on. It's it's totally on.
Max
Congratulations.
Can smell blood in the water.
You've poked the bear and the bear's awake, and now he's out of hibernation, and you can use whatever metaphor you want. It's not all the way the nightmare scenario, but this was pretty close to it from this weekend for sure. Not what I was looking forward to at all. I take solace in the fact that Lando was there. Look, I mean, I've always said that I'm a team guy first, but everybody who's listened to the show long enough knows what driver I'm probably pulling for in the McLaren camp more than the other one. That said, I should feel happier, and I don't because it's coming because Oscar's not fighting it, and I don't like. I just want him. Like, the biggest thing for him is he's just got to relax and drive the car. Don't care what if you think Lando's getting more favorable treatment. Don't worry about the pit stop order, the qualifying order, all of that other crap. The best advice is actually something that Tom Stallard, who we actually got to see run the racetrack on Thursday, and boy, does that dude is a fit ass dude, man, because he freaking ran in that thing. But anyway, the best advice that he could give was control the controllables. That's what Oscar needs to do. Control the stuff you can control. Don't be wrecking the car. Win ugly if you have to. And that means if you got to take a P2 when you might be able to get a P1 out of it, maybe you take the P2. But you've got to stop the bleeding, because going for it has backfired twice in the last 4 races. The thing in Baku, like I said, worst 35 seconds of his career. And then this is probably right up there, the next worst 5 seconds of him turning in and just not getting, just a reaction of what happened. I don't think he was trying to make any of that happen. I don't think any of it was intentional from anybody, but you need to be able to stay clear of that kind of stuff because that's what's going to derail you. You can lean on your point advantage that you've earned and made it, but you got to be able to do it and do it wisely because right now you're just burning points like you're hemorrhaging and it's got to stop now.
You were reminding me talking about the sprint. Some of the team radio for Oscar cracked me up during that whole incident when his engineer comes over the radio and says, "Now, Oscar, be careful. I think, you might have some suspension damage." And you can see on the camera the wheel kind of doing this. And Oscar's like, Yep, we do. Okay, we see that now.
Because on the timing, he looked like he was still setting times. They weren't good. And then he eventually pulls the car over and then, it's done. And at that point, you're damaging it worse by trying to actually make it back to the pits. So the right thing was to stop, get out the car, call it a day, get the car back to the garage as soon as possible. And like I said, they were lucky to make it out. But yeah, Dave, it is great to have you back, sir. We love you. We appreciate you. I've said this for everybody on this list. You guys are the reason we continue to do this show. Because if you guys weren't listening, we'd be talking at air. And as much as fun as that might be, we love the fact that you guys listen and interact with us. So keep it coming.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you guys very much. Thank you, Dave. Our last one comes in from the Formula. Thank you, Mr. Formula. And he's got some direct messages coming here. Now, if I remember correctly, Rachel is a bit of a George fan, so some of this might be a little brutal. Formula says, "You know what? This consistent smugness from George is really starting to piss me off. This needless, pompous attitude has been growing over the last couple of years. I'm sorry, but George needs someone to smack that arrogance off his damn face. I used to pull for this man back at Williams, but he lights a fire of rage in me every weekend at this point. So entitled and full of himself." Moving on to the next point. Geez, what Red Bull wouldn't do for a competent second driver right now to help Max these last few races. He's flying solo out there, but has brought some more spice back into the season. And a side note, I actually think that the sprint race crash was Oscar's fault, but you probably covered that already. I hope you guys had a blast at the race and filled yourself up with some barbecue. Yes, we did. We did go get barbecue. I think the very first night
we were there was there's a spot. It's actually a chain, but it's so damn good we don't care. It's called Rudy's. And if you happen to be in the South, the Plains area, Texas, Oklahoma, wherever, if you can find one and go to it, it will change your life. You will never find better barbecue. I've yet to find its equal. And I've eaten a lot of barbecue.
It's very strange to me because, up here in Chicago, gas stations aren't really a place to eat generally, unless you're just getting a quick snack or something. And so the first time I go to Rudy's, I'm like, a station place? Really? You sure? And yeah, it's really freaking good.
I had to tell everybody who I have brought there, I go, trust me, just trust me. If you trust me, you're going to be fine. And by the end of the meal, they're all like, when can we go back?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes, I'm a sucker for some good brisket. So we definitely filled up on that. As far as the other points here goes, yeah, George is kind of a pompous ass sometimes, but I think you really kind of have to be. I think that, in my opinion, is a little bit the attitude of a champion. He goes out there, he fights, he does a lot of the same things that, Max and Lewis have done over the years, where if they can fight to get something in their favor, they'll kind of skirt on the rules and argue their case. And when other people do the same thing, they argue against them. It's just part of the name of the game and really any sport. And I think that's just maybe the way he words things over the radio, could irk someone, but I'm sure Max has irked people. And I think Lewis during his heyday maybe rubbed some people the wrong way when he was super dominant. Sebastian Vettel did. So it's really just a part of that elite driver mentality, I think. And I'm happy that he has it, because watching him, scrap with Max is some of the most exciting parts of Formula One for me. And I'm actually here for it. Last point there.
I was just going to say, I know George is a guy who understands media. He understands social media. He understands what a soundbite is. He knows what will make something go viral. And some of it is a ploy, and some of it is real, and some of it is acting. Like, it's just part of the game, whether or not you want to do it right. And I think, to your point, I think the good ones, the great ones, have all used it somehow to garner some sort of an advantage, whether that's trying to get under Max's skin. I don't know if anything can get under Max's skin other than Christian Horner. That's, I think, been the only guy who's ever really pissed him off, really. And that's one of the things. And Lewis Hamilton a couple times, I know, did kind of pissed Max off. So I'll give him credit for that. But yeah, I mean, I understand where it comes from, because like I've always said this, like, he's the kid in the back of the room that goes, "Oh, you did that. I saw you do that. You shouldn't do that." And, you want to get up and smack that kid sometimes. I mean, I've been in the room and wanted to do the same thing too in my life. And it's annoying. And there's people like that you just have to deal with. But I think it's all for a reason. I don't think he's doing it to be just purely arrogant. I think he's doing what comes off as maybe being pompous and arrogant for a reason. And I think he's probably different once the camera turns off, I suspect. So I think what you're probably seeing is the race driver persona, or the George Russell persona that he's allowing you to see, and he may be different elsewhere. I don't know. And that's just it's a guess.
If I get the chance to get to know him, I'll let you know. If he's different off camera. George, if you're out there, I would love to get to know you and report to the world
we'll come
how
hang.
nice a person you are off camera. Last point on here about second Red Bull driver. Yeah, I've been tearing into Yuki Tsunoda these last few races, and really most of the season. And he did do a little better in Coda. He actually got some points, which was good. But you can't argue that beyond the lion's share of the points have been scored by Max Verstappen, that he is in contention to win the Drivers' Championship with no help from his teammate, and is trying to get Red Bull possibly up to P2 in the Constructors' Championship, mostly on his own as well. So yes, I think having a better equipped second driver in that seat would do wonders for Max's Drivers' Championship hopes and the team's constructor placement hopes. Just because if you could finish behind Max, that's one more place that the McLarens can't occupy, and it knocks them down a few pegs. But we've said this time and time again that car is difficult to drive. It's almost certainly tailored to what Max wants, and whoever else ends up in that second seat just has to deal with it and hope they can figure it out. And really no one has for a while. Sergio Perez struggled with it. Liam Lawson struggled very much with it. Tsunoda's struggling with it. Let's see here. Who was there before?
Pierre Gasly has struggled with it.
Pierre Gasly
struggled with it. Albon has struggled with it.
Everyone has struggled with that car. It is not. I don't think you can chalk it up to the second driver, because a lot of those drivers have moved to other teams and been very successful. So I think it's just the fact that they're running effectively a one-car team is really the Red Bull strategy right now. We've seen other teams do that in history. Lotus, the original Lotus, was famous for doing it. And I think unless they change that mentality and they build a car that can suit more than one driver's needs and wants, I think they're just almost kind of shooting themselves in the foot with this, because it's a rotating door of second seat drivers that can't cut it, and it can't possibly be all their fault.
No, the interesting thing for me is once Lauren Mekies can really put his stamp on how he wants to run the team, and we've already seen a lot of what he's kind of already turned around has been really good. Like, if he can if there's anybody who I think can solve that second seat problem, it's a guy like that. I don't know that he can do it, because we've had so many opportunities with it before, but it's going to be at least a different perspective. A guy who's willing to listen to the second driver as to what his needs are. And maybe they go around and pull something from like what the McLarens did between the suspensions of Oscar and Lando, where they're running different specs of suspension. Lando's got the updated one. Oscar was offered it, didn't like it, and stuck with the one that he had. It may be something like that happens in the future, where there's an update that, hey, Max may like it, maybe the second driver doesn't. And maybe they let them go in separate directions to a point. I think you can't do it fundamentally. You can't change the fundamental characteristics of the car from something that isn't going to be in Max's wheelhouse. But maybe you can do something that brings that second driver more into play. And you also then give that second driver, whoever that's going to be in the future, whether it's Isaac Hadjar enough runway to get to deal with that car without, as much as people may or may not love Helmut Marko, but without Helmut Marko staring down at you every freaking round. I think that also has something to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
So let's hope that if there is going to be culture change at Red Bull, that may be the key to getting that second driver seat solved. And if anybody's going to, I think I'm more confident in Lauren McKee's doing it than anybody that I've seen for them in a long time.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Thank you again, everyone, for your emails. We are very happy to interact with you guys and talk with you guys about how awesome a time we had at the race.
And thank you for all the well wishes for that. I mean, it's literally it's so many dominoes that you have to stack in order to actually pull a trip like this off. And the fact that we've been able to do it, and one, we're blessed to be able to do it. Let's be honest. There's a lot of people who can't, just can't make it happen. And number two, the fact that we've been able to do it, it's, like I said, it takes a whole year of planning. It really does. Like, I'm already kind of starting, like, they give you the QR code to secure your 2026 seats at the race, for crying out loud. Good Lord. And it almost takes that long, where you start thinking about how you're going to structure the trip, where you're going to stay, what kind of car you're going to try to rent, what flights you're going to try to get into, what's the best way to get in and out, all that other stuff. So, and what I can tell you is the more you do it, the better you get at it, because this is another just a side story for a minute. But I don't know if we just picked the right route or the right time to be showing up, but we were followed by these big, huge trains of VIP people and constables. And all of a sudden we're getting shooed out of the way by cops and big, hairy looking burly people that just wanted to get my little rental car out of the way. And we did, gave them their thing. But the best part was, there's one, it's Sunday, we're watching, and there's two ways basically to get to the circuit if you're coming on the one side where like the main grandstand is. There's what we call FM 812, and then there's this back way that my phone actually suggested at one point, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. This is the most direct way. It's 2 turns, and you're there. You just wait it out. So we went the main way. This other entourage, there's like 3 of them, and multiple cars in this entourage go down, and we're like, well, that must be going the other way. So we get all the way, we move, weave our way through the traffic and finally get to the turn into our parking lot. And who shows up behind us? The entourages. And we had to get out of the way again. So my route was better than theirs. So I know what I'm doing, if nothing else. That's what that tells me. But anyway, thank you guys for all of the support and the well wishes for a good trip. And it was fun. All right, so we will move into our awards. We shall start with the rubbish. Cody, I'll let you go first. What you got?
All right, my rubbish award is going to go to the failed pass attempt by Lance Stroll in the sprint race. We didn't really go into much detail about it earlier, but if you watch it from the camera angle on his car, he was so far back behind Ocon. But that move was never going to happen. And he's like, I'm going to try it anyway. And as you might expect, in trying to, be on as late on the brakes as possible, he locks it up and just plows straight into the side of Ocon's car and takes them both out of the race. Even immediately, like right after he does that, he's kind of holding up his hand to Ocon, being like, yeah, that was on me. So he knew it was his mistake.
It looked like an amateur lobby in F1, the video game, is what it kind of looks like when you get into like your first lobby with all the brand new players and everything. Yeah, that's what that move reminded me of.
Yeah, so that one was the worst overtake attempt of the weekend for me, and there were some poor ones. So that one takes the cake for the Rubbish Award.
All right, so here comes mine. And mine is basically my Saturday morning experience, which was waking up at the crack of dawn, getting yourself all cleaned up, driving 35 plus miles to the racetrack because that's how far we had to stay away from it in order to afford it. Fighting through all the traffic to get to the parking lot, getting through there, walking the parking lot, getting through security, showing your ID, not once, not twice, not 3, but 4 times, get to your seat. And then having your favorite 2 drivers wreck each other after 5 seconds. McLaren, what the actual hell? You can't do that. It boggles the mind. And I know it's not a matter of intent. I get what Oscar was trying to do, but you cannot do that in that situation. All you got to do, P3 was fine. And instead, you made it 10 times worse, literally. And now we're scrambling. So, and let me just tell you, that's a gut punch of epic proportions. It took a lot for me to not want to just go like, I'm going to go into the lounge and start drinking now because I thought about it and I said, no, it's too damn hot and thought better of it. But yeah, please don't do that again. And that's for anybody and for any experience. If anybody who goes and then only gets to watch your favorite driver last for 5 seconds, that sucks. So let's not have that again, please. Thanks. Okay, thanks.
I mean, for me, Coda's been great over the years. I've watched Max win everything except for the very first race that I went to with you, and Lewis Hamilton got that one. But yeah, since then, three Grand Prix wins and 2 sprint wins, all by Max while I've been there. It's a good race to go to if you're a Max fan.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. All right, so we will move into analysis paralysis, and I'll go first with this one. Team orders at Alpine? Zuh? Over P17? Double Zuh? Like, what are we doing? Don't understand. Why? Like, who cares? Let Franco Colapinto have it. Nobody cares. There's no points involved. Why are we making this bigger than it had to be? Don't understand it. Don't get it. Not sure what's going on. Help.
Yeah, ditto from me. It made no sense. There were no points on the line. It did, just as a team order, it didn't make sense because you're keeping your driver with much better pace stuck behind. I don't know if they were trying to save some pride for Gasly or something like that. But yeah, it was weird. It didn't make sense. Even if you're trying to hold off, Bortoletto coming up behind you, it still doesn't make sense. And there's still no points on the line.
Right.
Oh, just let them race, just tell them
like
they don't wreck each
is,
other.
Like, that would make sense if this was like P11 and you were trying to get something for like count back, or you were tied with somebody in points. You're 20 some points adrift of the closest constructor. There's literally no motivation for it. It didn't make sense.
Yep, agreed.
All right, so we'll move into our dark horse. Cody, I'll let you go first. What do we got here?
I'm going to go with Ferrari based on their Sunday performance after their Friday performance. They looked awful in sprint qualifying. They didn't really even do super great in the sprint race. They were just kind of helped out by the fact that both McLarens were out. But I mean, Lewis Hamilton got by Charles Leclerc, which was pretty cool, but he couldn't get by Carlos Sainz for that sprint podium, which was, a little damning. I mean, Williams has been so much better over these last couple of years, but still, you're Ferrari. You should be able to do that right now. So, but yeah, they brought it all back. They had a good run in qualifying, ended up finishing 3rd and 4th in the race, which got them a big old bunch of points to help their case for their place in the constructor standings. So yeah, good on you, Ferrari.
Yeah, I'm going to give it to 2 different folks here. One is Yuki Tsunoda for the sprint, because of all the chaos, Yuki Tsunoda just had the door open up and drove through it, but he managed to get through it without getting damaged, and all that was also only
maybe a little damage from running over and dragging Hülkenberg's front wing for a little while.
And kudos to the halo, because Lewis Hamilton almost found out what Nico Hülkenberg's front wing looked like. We didn't even mention that.
Intimately.
Yeah. Again, one of the best inventions ever. We're so glad it's there. I don't care how ugly it looks. It needs to be in a race car. But Yuki Tsunoda for the sprint gets my dark horse. And both Ferrari drivers, I thought, showed very well in a car that has not worked well for them. Coda is a bit of a specialty track for them. We'll see if that translates anywhere else throughout the rest of the season. When you have light shine on you in a tough year, you got to take advantage of it. They did. Good on you, Ferrari, for that. All right, a driver of the day. If this isn't Max Verstappen, I don't know what you were watching, because he was clearly the best, other than the free practice session all weekend long. Max did everything he needed to do and has now totally put himself back in to at least a championship discussion. So driver of the day, easy one for me, Max Verstappen.
Yep, it's going to be Max for me too. I've already sung his praises plenty this episode, and I just look forward to seeing more of it over the next 5 races.
Well, we shall see. But that's why we're all going to watch now, because we're going to see what can happen. And if he pulls off, it'll be a season that won't get forgotten anytime soon if he manages to pull this off. Absolutely true for that. All right, so we'll move into predictions. Cody, you had 3 points on the weekend. You got the pole sitter because you predicted Max for that. You got P1 on the podium because you predicted Max to win the race. And you got the prop bet because you had Max. So you are very Max-centric, and that led to all of your points. I was also pretty Max-centric as well. At least I was smart enough to be. I wasn't stupid enough to totally go full fanboy here. So I got the pole sitter. But I was a little bit better on the times because they were slightly slower across the boards. So I got the fastest quality time by being a little slower than you. I got the fast race lap time by being slower. And I also got the prop bet because I had Max winning the sprint because he is Mr. Sprint. He's won more of them than anybody else since the format's been introduced. So I take this weekend by a scant 4-3 margin. I've opened up a bit of a gap in the overall. I lead 11-6, which of course puts me right in the Oscar Piastri position of now watching this lead fade away. So we'll see what happens throughout the rest of the season. But at least up till now, it's been really good for me, at least. But anyway, we'll see what that happens. All right. Any final thoughts? It's been an epic weekend. Cody, well, first of all, I am so glad you were able to share this with me to go down. I know it's a huge commitment from a time standpoint, there's a monetary standpoint, and you got to put up with my ass for 5 days. So I appreciate the fact that you were able to do it. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed. And by the way, if anybody wants to know, Cody can pick a restaurant like nobody's business. That dude went like 10 for 10 on restaurants. I kept asking him, find me a place. Find a place we've never been to. And they were all knocked him out of the park. So kudos to all the fun people in Round Rock. Their hospitality was absolutely amazing. We found some really cool places. It's a fun town. Like Austin's great. The suburbs of Austin are great too. Mm-hmm. There's all these little hidden gems. We're only in a little small part of the town, and we found a whole bunch of stuff. So you travel to Austin if you have the chance. There's 6th Street. All that stuff's amazing. But the suburban stuff too, if you're on a budget, you can get a whole lot done that way too and have a great ass time. And we did that way. So thank you, sir, for coming with us.
Very well. And It was pretty much all in the burbs. So, it was an absolute blast. I love every time that we've gone down. So, I look forward to doing it more in the future. And as some of you may have heard, CODA is extended until, 2030? Yeah, 2034. So, so long as Andy can afford it, he'll probably be at all 9 of those.
Well, we're gonna see. Well, we were talking about things that make you feel old. If I manage to do all 9 of them, and that's a big if, that'll be 20 years. 20 years I've been going somewhere every year. If that happens, holy Hannah, just puts things in perspective when you think about it that way. But anyway, we'll leave that. That's all for future. We'll leave that till then. But yeah, that was a USGP. Certainly not going to be one that I'm going to forget. Not going to forget it anytime soon. We hope you enjoyed what we were able to bring. I wasn't able to do as much social media as I wanted to because the internet would come in and out while we were there. I've got stuff. I will try to post some of our videos and stuff on Instagram. Like we've got the formation lap. Cody, you may have a good video of the race start. I didn't take any. I was more concentrating.
I didn't take a video. I was sucking that all in.
No, we were both doing that. I'm watching this and I don't want to concentrate on trying to record it. I want to actually watch it. So, but it is such a cool thing to watch. The cars, they just glide, man. And if you ever have a chance to go, doesn't really matter where you're sitting, but from where we sit, boy, do you get the perspective of just watching these things. Just the engineering is just so amazing. And even the slowest F1 car is still an amazing piece of engineering. Oh. So damn, there's nothing like it on the planet. And that's why we do what we do. But anyway, till next season, CODA, we thank you for everything. Thank you to the folks at, Speed City, who did all the PA work over the course of the weekend. That's yeoman's work. We talked for 2 hours. These guys talk for like 8 a day. So good for them for doing all that stuff. And we will be in contact for sure. But anyway, that's enough for us. Take care of yourselves out there. And as always, folks, may all your laps be fast.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Outlap F1 podcast. If you like what you heard, click that subscribe button and be sure to leave us a 5-star review. If you want to connect with us outside of the show, check out our website at www.outlapf1.com. Find us on Twitter and Instagram at outlapf1podcast or email us at chatnow@outlapf1.com. As always, thank you so much for your support, and we'll see you on the next one.